Cities, bustling, vibrant, full of life and activity. But did you know that cities hold deep spiritual significance in the Bible? From the very first city built by Cain to the grand vision of the New Jerusalem in Revelation, cities represent much more than just places to live. They symbolize community, creativity, rebellion, and ultimately, God's eternal plan for humanity. The first city, Enoch. The story of cities begins in Genesis 4 verse 17, where we see Cain, the first murderer, building the first city. After killing his brother Abel, Cain is condemned to wander the earth. Yet, in defiance of his punishment, he builds a city and names it after his son, Enoch. On the surface, it seems like a practical move, a place to settle and build a community. But there's more to it than that. Cain's act of building a city is humanity's first attempt to create stability and community outside of God's presence. It reflects our deep desire for security and connection, even when separated from God. However, this city was also marked by sin and rebellion, as Cain's lineage became infamous for violence and moral corruption. The city of Enoch reminds us of a universal truth: our attempts to create order and progress are incomplete without God. Even in our greatest achievements, we need His guidance to avoid falling into pride and sin. The second city Bible talks about is the Tower of Babel, a city of pride. The next major city in the Bible is Babel, featured in Genesis 11. This story begins with humanity united. They share one language and work together. But their goal isn't to glorify God, it's to glorify themselves. They say, let's build a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so we can make a name for ourselves and avoid being scattered. This city represents humanity's pride and self-reliance. Instead of following God's command to fill the earth, the people of Babel chose to concentrate their power in one place. Their tower was a symbol of defiance, an attempt to elevate themselves to God's level. God intervened by confusing their languages, forcing them to scatter across the earth. When human ambition becomes self-centered and defies God's authority, it ultimately leads to division and failure. Babel is a powerful reminder that unity without God's direction can easily turn into rebellion. The third city we explore is called the cities of refuge. Not all cities in the Bible symbolize rebellion. Some were specifically created to reflect God's justice and mercy. In Numbers 35, God instructs the Israelites to establish 6 cities of refuge. These cities were sanctuaries for anyone who accidentally caused someone's death. They provided protection from vengeance until the accused could stand trial. This system ensured that justice was served fairly. It also prevented blood feuds, which were common in ancient cultures. But these cities also carry a deeper spiritual meaning. They foreshadow the ultimate refuge we find in Jesus Christ. Just as the cities of refuge offered safety, Jesus offers us protection from the judgment we deserve. They remind us that God is not only just but also merciful, always providing a way for redemption. Now let's move to Jerusalem, the holy city. Of all the cities mentioned in the Bible, Jerusalem is the most significant. It's referred to over 800 times in Scripture and is often called Zion, the city of David, and the city of God. Jerusalem's importance began when King David captured it and made it the capital of Israel. His son Solomon built the temple there, making it the center of worship for God's people. But Jerusalem isn't just a historical city, it's a symbol of God's covenant with His people. It represents God's desire to dwell among us. However, Jerusalem also faced judgment for its unfaithfulness. The Babylonians destroyed the city and the temple in 586 BC, but the prophets foretold its restoration. Today, Jerusalem remains a powerful symbol of hope, unity, and God's eternal plan. Here comes the Jesus and cities. Cities played a central role in Jesus' ministry. He performed miracles in cities like Capernaum, healed the blind in Jericho, and preached in Jerusalem. Cities were places where people gathered, making them the perfect backdrop for His teachings. In Matthew 5 verse 14, Jesus tells His followers, "You are the light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hidden." This statement is profound. It calls believers to live in a way that reflects God's truth, making their communities places of light and hope. Through Jesus, cities, often associated with sin and chaos, became places of healing, teaching, and transformation. His ministry shows us that God's presence can redeem even the darkest corners of our world. It's time to know about the fall of Babylon, Revelation 18. In the book of Revelation, Babylon represents a corrupt, worldly city that opposes God. Babylon is portrayed as a wealthy, powerful city that thrives on greed and immorality. It's described as the great prostitute that leads nations astray. Babylon's fall is a vivid reminder that no human system, no matter how mighty, can stand against God's sovereignty. Its destruction symbolizes the end of sin's reign and the beginning of God's ultimate victory. Babylon teaches us that worldly power and wealth are fleeting. True security and significance come only from aligning ourselves with God's kingdom. The New Jerusalem, Revelation 21-22. The Bible's story of cities culminates in Revelation 21-22 with the vision of the New Jerusalem. This is no ordinary city, it's God's eternal dwelling place with his people. John describes it as having streets of gold, gates of pearl, and no need for a sun or moon because God's glory provides its light. But beyond its physical beauty, the New Jerusalem represents the fulfillment of God's plan. It's a place of perfect harmony, where sin, death, and pain are no more. It's the ultimate restoration of what was lost in Eden. This city reminds us that God's desire is not just to save individuals but to restore communities and all of creation. It's a vision of hope for the future, a reminder that God's kingdom will one day reign supreme. So, what does all this mean for us? Cities in the Bible teach us about human nature, our need for community, our capacity for both good and evil, and our deep longing for God. They also remind us of God's character, his justice, mercy, and desire to dwell among his people. But here's the big question: what do you think about the role of cities in God's plan? Do you see your city as part of his story? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this video inspired you, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, stay blessed and keep shining.